On the 6th day before Christmas, an orator said to me, as you craft your message, remember you will perform it too. So map out the words, the tone, the pauses, the melody, the volume, the gestures, the facial expressions, and the body movements. Think 3D from the start. So how do I suggest that you do that? If you've got this idea of a presentation that you want to do, how do you include all those parameters? Because I think by now you've worked out that giving a presentation, giving a talk, is not just about the stream of sounds that come from your mouth. The words themselves are only about 10% of your message. The other 90% is made up of about 40% vocal quality and about 50% of your visual stuff. What you do with your hands, your facial expressions, your body language, the whole lot comes in on that as well. So if you're thinking 3D from the start, how do you plan out your speech? The way I do it and the way I encourage my speakers to do it is to type out the words straight off. And then when you're considering the tone, have a way of describing that, have a way of annotating it over the top. Now, what do I mean by tone? Here in Australia, we have a penchant for going up at the end when we're yarning and we're having a talk and we're having a chat. And it can go, it's great when you're blethering. That's a Scottish word. Anyway, it's great when you're on an informal basis. But when you're in the middle of a talk or you've got something important to say, you've got a call to action. If you're going up at the end, it can sound a bit weak and ineffectual, and it doesn't carry the same gravitas, and people aren't going to take it seriously. As if you had that down tone. This is important. You've got to listen to this. Can you hear the difference? It goes down at the end. If that's something that you require reminding of, then by all means, draw a line over the top of that last word with a at the bottom to give yourself that reminder that this is a word where the tone goes down. Trust you can hear the difference there between the tone going up, as in if you were asking a question, or if you were giving a list. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4. And you know that when you've got to 4, that's the end one because the tone has gone down. Can you hear that? I'm going to hallucinate. That's a yes. So that's one way of annotating your tone. What about pauses? Well, when I'm typing it and I want to emphasize a particular word, a pause, then I'll put a few extra spaces in either before, so it's what we call a pre-pause, because the next word is really important, or we have a post-pause or a drop the mic moment when you've said something and you want to let it land. And then you carry on. Now, the way I type it out is I put extra spaces in there to give that immediate visual cue that that's where there's a pause. I have to tell you that Microsoft Editor has a hissy fit at this point and wants me to put the pauses, take out the spaces. But I forgive Editor. I go, no, I know what I'm doing on this one. Ignore, ignore, ignore. That's how I annotate pauses. What about melody? Now, melody is only something that you're going to annotate if it's specifically something you need to be reminded of. There are a few people that I work with who tend to be a little bit monotonous and don't have very much in the way of bandwidth in what they're saying. And it can get a little bit hypnotic in what they're saying, and it just goes on within a short bandwidth. And at that point, I may go, let's have a bit more melody. and then it could be that sort of thing. But I would tend to do that at the start of a sentence, just to give a little asterisk and an uppy downy bit, a bit like the oscilloscope that we were talking about a few days ago, that you've got some form of visual way, a visual clue. This is where I need to be a bit more expressive in my voice with a melody. What about the body? Now at this point you can go shh. You can actually write at the top shh, SH. Or what I often do is I borrow things from music, and I'll do the hairpin. So if I'm going to bring the volume down because this is a secret, and at that point I would have an arrow into the comments section and go, look both ways. Bit of a conspiracy. That's one of those whole body movements that we're coming on to later. But the volume, I would do, the hairpins that come, where are we? That way. So showing from big volume down to little volume. Shh. Now that's because I'm used to reading music. Now that may not work for you, in which case you may go shh. You might write SHH over the top. And then when you want to make it loud again, you can put the other way around. Or you could put like a little explosion symbol to show that that is where you're going to suddenly bring the volume up. Play with it. Develop your own system, something that works for you. I'm sharing you what I show with my clients. But if that doesn't work for you, do your own. Gestures. I've already given you a bit of a clue on that one. You know how in Word you've got the opportunity for an editor putting the comments in? Stick a comment in. Have in the margin then what you would describe what you would do with the look both ways for the shh secret. There could be a gesture that you want to avoid. There could be the take your hands out of your pockets, boys. It could be this hand shape at chest height for ladies that you want to avoid. It could be a reminder, spread your hands out so that it doesn't look like you're playing with your boobs. Whatever it is, use the comments. Use that little speech bubble box that you've got the opportunity of using in your word processing package. Same goes with facial expressions. Now you can write in smile. You could write in thinky pose, something that is going to give you the clue of what that facial expression looks like. If you're good at drawing, you might want to draw it. It's not so easy to do when you've been preparing something on the computer. If you were handwriting it, then yes, you could do it that way. Or at that point, you could print the whole thing off and then just draw the facial expressions in the margin. However you wish to do it, whatever's going to work for you. My point is that you're starting right from the beginning to think about how you're performing it. 3D from the start. Because as you are rehearsing your presentation, if you put in all these elements from the start, you will remember it so much more vividly. Because you're making those neural connections, not just to the bit of the memory that's remembering the words, but the cross connections with what am I doing with my hands? What am I doing with my voice? What am I doing with my eyes? What am I doing with my whole body? Those are all using slightly different parts of your brain. And the more connections that are involved, the easier it is for you to remember it. So then on performance day, when the stress levels are going, you've got so many more things that you are accessing to enable you to remember what the words are and how you're delivering it. Mention body movements. That can be the staging. That can also be remembering that left and right are different. We think in the West left to right, because we read left to right. So any form of movement, any form of chronology, any form of seeing progress of time will go left to right from your audience's perspective, not yours. So this is my right hand, and I'm starting on my right hand side and moving to my left, so that for you as the audience, it looks as though I'm going left to right. That may be, particularly in the early days, something I will get my speakers to remember and just annotate it on their speech, on the thing that they're reading, memorizing, and physically walking their way through. I've given you an awful lot to think about there, but there were 8 parameters that I wanted you to consider from a 3D perspective right from the start. Think about how you're going to annotate that, how you're going to map it out, how you're going to learn it. And then you've got your speech ready. If you'd like any extra support with this, whether it be from the annotation or looking at how you're going to do this, please get hold of me. Message me below. Let's do some work together. There's an awful lot to this speaking business that doesn't immediately come to mind. But when you speak consciously, when you're a conscious communicator, you think about all these different elements. Wendy Corner, Comm Coach, signing off.